And a very good morning to you. Welcome along to Wednesday mornings Off the Ball AM. As ever, if you want to get involved, you can leave a comment for us below whatever stream you're watching this on. YouTube.com/Off the Ball to subscribe. Facebook.com/Off the Ball to like. And of course, you can always get us on Twitter @Off the Ball. We also have a special Twitter feed just for the show @Off the Ball AM. Pat Nevin's going to join us to talk to us about an absolutely astonishing game last night at Anfield. 5-2 is how it finished. But is the tie over? We're not really sure if it is or not. We'll also speak with Quirke about some various GAA stories and loads more besides. Máire Trease Ní Cheallaigh is with us this morning. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
That was one of the weirdest games I've ever seen.
It was, but wasn't it great? It was really entertaining.
Yeah, 5-0 and the commentary team are like, oh, everybody's booking their flights. And then the first goal goes in and they're like, yeah, this is still fine. And the second goal goes in and it's like, oh, they've just overturned Barcelona in exactly the same circumstances. So maybe Liverpool aren't going to Kiev just yet.
Yeah, maybe, but I'd probably, if I was a Liverpool fan, I probably still would book my flights. I'd take the whole, will Roma do that again? I don't know. Then again, you know, if the place they're going to do it would be at home. But yeah, I just feel like Liverpool are this little juggernaut now that it'll be very hard to stop.
Well, they're an 80-minute juggernaut for sure.
Very much so, yeah.
That last 10 minutes, I'm not too sure about Cormac. One of the sound engineers here was in the lift on the way in and he looked glum, and he's a Liverpool fan. He actually looked glum. It was like one of the greatest performances in the club's history, and he's still like, just not sure about this. I don't know what's going to happen.
Because it's Liverpool and we know they do this, and because the type of game that they're playing now, which is all that pace, they do run out of steam kind of around the 18th minute, and teams know this, and we saw even last night the goals came from mistakes and maybe a questionable penalty, but at the end of the day, if you run at that pace, that's what they're missing for those last 10 minutes. Is that a legs thing or a mental thing? I don't know, but yeah.
The other thing that we're going to talk about today is the fact that the racing in Punchestown was absolutely remarkable yesterday. It was going great up until the second or third last race of the day when Paul Townend did this.
Second last now, and it's Monolith. Monolith's a fooler, and all brought down invitation only. Album photo left in front of Finian's Oscar, the storyteller, and Jury Judy down now to the far, and album photo was run out, brought out Finian's Oscar, the storyteller left in front of Jury Judy and Shattered Love, and this has really gone Gordon's way. It's the storyteller and Davy Russell gonna win. Second on the inside, Monbeg Notorious. Third, possibly Jury Judy, Ratvinden 4.
Yeah, so I don't know what happened there, but we were all on the storyteller at 16-1, so we were pretty happy. We were just screaming like, ah! And then afterwards you're like, hang on a second, something weird has happened here. So we'll talk a little bit about that a little later on with John Duggan, but nobody came out afterwards and actually said, this is what happened, this is how it happened, this is why it happened, which never is good. The absence of information is...
Yeah, I'd have loved to have heard why it happened or why he made that decision. You'd imagine you don't just make that decision on the fly without a good reason behind it, but I'd love to hear. But I saw some racing columnists last night and analysts saying, well actually, they don't need to explain everything, but I actually think they do, especially for those of us, most of us wouldn't have that in-depth understanding for a start.
No, for sure. It's like, it's a big race, there's a lot of money involved, there's the title on the line, and it's going to have an impact on the outcome of that quite significantly. It was a huge swing in Gordon Elliott's favour, so everybody has a little bit of explaining to do, and you know, there's plenty of controversy around the sport. They need to sometimes step out and go, yeah, I made a mistake, it's fun. You know, like if it's a mistake, it's a mistake, and that's fair enough. Absolutely,
like we all make them, but I think we do need to hear, if it was a mistake, simple as that, fine, but just tell us.
Yeah, for sure. All right, time for the newspapers.
OTB AM.
In association with Air. Get Air Sport free with Air Broadband.
A lot of the headlines, it seems, were written before the final two goals went in. So it's Salah leaves Roma in ruins at the back page of the Irish Independent. I don't really think that this game is completely done yet. That's why I'm not entirely sure that it is ruins. John Muldoon insists he has no regrets over his Connacht loyalty. Muldoon spent 15 years at Connacht and has revealed that he had some interest from Irish clubs and from some French clubs, but that he would have been heartbroken to be watching the team winning the Pro 12 as it was then, and him picking up money or living in an apartment in the south of France. Muldoon is one of those like proper Irish sports people who at the end of his career is getting a lot of plaudits but deserves every single one of them.
Oh, absolutely. And obviously me, I'd be a little bit biased. I would be a Connacht fan, obviously, and he's just been so constant. He's the player we all know. He's such a great ambassador for the game on and off the field as well, and he's just a real Galway legend, you know, and yeah, it'll be very hard to see Connacht without him, you know.
that TG Carr documentary a couple of years ago when they went through the losing season, it felt like that could go either way in terms of the perception that it has. Like, you leave it all out there and you have a terrible season like that, it's very easy for people to go, well, you're going to be perennial losers for the rest of your lives. But it seems that it actually had the opposite impact of making human the efforts that they were making, and then the turnaround a couple of seasons later all the more sweet. Absolutely.
And I think as well, it's one thing being the perennial loser, but if you're the perennial loser and after throwing everything at it, you have to admire that. And I think if anything else, people watched that and said, do you know what, it's not like these guys aren't trying.
Yeah.
It's just for one reason or another. And sometimes it was bad luck.
A lot of times
they were
it was bad luck.
Yeah. It was just, but they grew above that, which is great to see. And yeah, he'll be missed.
Last story there on the back of the Indo this morning is that Sale are the latest club to be eyeing a move for Jackson and Olding. But again, the question has to persist. If you're a club trying to sign either of those two players, why are you doing it now? Why not wait until the summertime or a little bit later on? So let's move on to the Examiner. Poole put the boot in. This is Roberto Firmino's massive ability to get up to celebrate the goal afterwards. I actually don't know what he's doing. It's just I am wild with desire and happiness. I'm going to hitch kick the air. So that's them running rings around Roma, and then a couple of other great stories as well, Muldoon. But Kieran Shannon has again, he's coming back to the fixtures. We'll talk about this with Micheál Quirke a little bit later on, but he's making the point that a provincial championship could be kept, play it in February, March, April, play the league as it is in summertime, but just make sure that the winners of the league get the All-Ireland trophy and everybody's happy.
Yeah, I would totally agree. It's gone to the point where the provincial championship, aside from one or two games, you can nearly always predict them, and you have no excitement and no sense of competition really till later in the season, you know. And yeah, dead rubbers a lot of the time.
I wonder, is this all by design? Is the staging post, the Super 8's the staging post to get to that point where everybody goes, look what happens when you put 8 good teams in a league format in the summer, massive crowds, amazing games and proper superstar footballers emerging from counties. Because John Fogarty has a follow-up to Declan Bogue's story yesterday about the TV coverage. So if anybody missed it yesterday, Declan Bogue was making the point that it looks like at the moment there's only going to be 2 games in the Ulster Championship televised for the whole thing. We're going to miss the Monaghan Tyrone game as it stands because of the way that the deal works out between the BBC and RTE. He's saying now that there might only be 1 game in the Munster Football Championship covered live on TV, and that will be the final. So over a period of time, this year, next year and the following year, the 3 years that we have this in, the TV companies are going to realise that nobody wants to watch Dublin walloping Westmeath, Carlow, Laois, maybe even Kildare and Meath at that point. And so none of those games get shown. Only the good games get shown, because if you're a TV company, why are you going to waste money on matches that nobody's going to watch? So maybe this is slowly, stealthily getting there.
The thing is though as well that these matches, the Dublin matches especially, they do get very high viewership, and I suppose the TVs will be looking at it, well, we have the high viewership here, but also the fact that, imagine, say for example last year, Carlow troubled Dublin. Can you imagine if Carlow pulled that one out of the bag?
We weren't there.
Yeah, you know, it's a really hard one to balance, and there's so many games and the cost that involves as well in televising these games. But I think really what that really opens the door to is the GAA perhaps streaming their own games in the future, and that's the way it's going to go. And I know you were saying earlier that could be the route, maybe to make sure everywhere in rural Ireland gets broadband eventually for the GAA. I don't know. Yeah,
there can be political manoeuvring. It's like, hang on, we've got these games free to air for anybody who has broadband, and everybody on the Western Seaboard's going, well, get us broadband. And it's like, well, maybe collectively we could actually put some pressure on the government or ask Google to provide it with us. So, like, what do you think is going to happen with the TV coverage? Like, it'll be interesting to see what happens when RTE have a certain number of games that they're allowed to show, and they know that there's going to be brilliant games in the Super 8, particularly in the first 2 rounds of the Super 8. So you would presume they'll go heavy on those and cut back naturally on the provincial games.
And as well as that though, RTE have the extra layer of, I used the word complication, but they're also a public service broadcaster. So therefore they can easily, have people making the argument toward them, well, we're from Westmeath, we pay our licence fee, we want to see them playing Dublin. This might be the only decent proper game we get against, you know, All-Ireland champions all year or whatever, that kind of way, you know. So they have the 2 roads to travel, which makes it a little bit more complicated for them, I think. But if I was the decision maker, yeah, absolutely, I'd want to be showing the entertaining games, not the ones that people may watch, but they're not going to be entertained by them. We're not going to learn anything from them. And what do you gain aside from killing a few hours on a Sunday afternoon when you're sitting bored on the couch? I don't know. it's not really the best ad for the game either. If I was the GAA, I'd also be pushing to televise the more interesting ones because they're all about brand and product.
And the other thing is that early in the season there's going to be good hurling matches, so they will use up a number in a way that they wouldn't have before, because obviously the amount of games in the Munster Hurling Championship has vastly increased, so they're going to want to show all those games because they're meaningful. And so the early part of the season is probably going to be very hurling heavy. The later part of the season is probably going to be football heavy, and they've got the same number of rights to games. So I suspect that they will all end up on GAA now, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think that ultimately they're like within the next 5 to 10 years you're going to see the GAA producing their own games, and that's probably the way of the future. Is that would people be happy paying a subscription to the GAA?
Oh, I don't know.
What would happen if that happened?
I don't know. And I suppose the other facet you look at it is while the GAA might be streaming their own games and producing them, and that's great, it will bring in a layer of, will the objectivity be there, for example, when it's an independent broadcaster going in?
I mean, no is the answer, right?
Yeah. Would people mind if they're seeing all the games? I don't know. Sometimes I feel the public don't really understand sometimes the role of the objectivity of a journalist, like we've seen it over the past few months when journalists have been kept out of things and that kind of thing, that you'd often see journalists getting tweets saying, well, you know, you're only going to print lies anyway and fake news, and perhaps sometimes people don't realise what's there until it's taken away or moved away. I'm not saying taken away, but if that's the way it evolves, it'll have its benefits, but also I would have some worries as well about some of the consequences. Yeah,
it definitely is going to be interesting. Although, so I listen to some podcasts produced by the NFL, and they're constantly critical of the NFL and the owners within the NFL. So it is possible to. I mean, I don't know if in Ireland it's possible because everybody knows everybody. They'd be like, "Hang on a second, now you said that about me," and I'm like in the same office as you. I don't know if we're quite at that level just yet.
That's the trouble. And
in America,
even here,
in different cities,
even people in different offices, we've all had these contentious interviews with managers or players, these things over the years, and you might get a phone call from a county board or from a manager a few days afterwards. And it can be quite hard to take sometimes, but you know, you just about you can fight through it and that kind of stuff. But to be doing it, like you said, coming into the Croke Park on a Monday morning after saying something the day before, it would be hard to do. The
disciplinary process, that refereeing situation, that manager made a bad decision, and next thing you're right beside him. Okay, so on to this is the Times Ireland edition today, and some pretty interesting stuff from these guys. Am I going to hold it up? Yeah, I'm going to hold it up straight, So Ulster ignore O'Driscoll's stinging barb. Well done, Ulster, for ignoring the fact that you are indeed a basket case. So let me just go through this. Ulster have refused to get drawn into a slanging match with Brian O'Driscoll, who labelled the province a bit of a basket case and questioned why Joey Carberry and Ross Byrne, the Leinster Fly halves, would want to move to Kingspan Stadium. So John O'Gibbs was out yesterday, and Sean Reedy, the flanker, was also there. And Sean Reedy protesting far too much. There's no point in covering some of the rubbish that goes on in the media nowadays. It does nobody any good. I've got nothing against Brian O'Driscoll. He can say what he wants. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. I love that. It's always like everyone's entitled to their own opinion, except you. Except you who've got this wrong opinion is always the subtext to that. If that's the way he said it, it's the way he said it. Obviously, as a group, we don't see it that way. We're just focusing on our own game and what we can do this way. And then John O'Gibbs came out and says he was asked if, you know, if within the bubble people in Ulster Rugby had either accepted, read this or heard about it. And then he's denying. We don't actually live in a bubble up here. We're part of a community, we're part of a province, we live amongst our people, so we're not actually in a bubble. We do our best to represent the people as best we can. We do our best to put performances together out there and win, lose or draw. Hopefully we've reflected a massive team effort and a massive engagement. That's what we try to be about. A guy like that's played a lot of tests. If he wants to label us a basket case, I don't know what you want me to say about that. So just to remind everybody of exactly what Brian did say here on OTB AM, have a look.
Potentially they could, one of those, Carberry or Byrne, could leave a winning culture, a winning environment. You look at someone like Jordy Murphy, I have to say, he you know, it can't be easy playing some of the best rugby of his life, both from a Leinster perspective but also from Jordy's perspective, where things are clearly not going right in Ulster. They don't have a coach, you know, a little bit of a basket case at the moment, and he's going up there to try and play his rugby from next year on.
I would say no if I was the two lads. No, not going.
Yeah, but it's a tough one, you know. It is, because I would too, because there's a good chance you're going to be winning medals, or you're going to be in the hunt for winning medals. At the moment, the Ulster are a while away from that.
Isn't the coaching better? Like, I have a coaching ticket here, which has...
That's the other thing. So a young player...
How am I actually going to get better?
Yeah, so they don't know, not knowing what's going to happen up in Ulster. who's going to come in, you know, am I going to improve as a player? Whatever about playing more often, what skills, what am I being taught on a week-to-week basis?
And by who? The other story from Ulster is, of course, that they are still banning news journalists from attending a press conference. This was after they had lied about the fact that the rugby journalists had complained en masse about the news journalists hijacking their press conference. The rugby journalists got together and said that didn't happen. Ulster had to say, yes, no, there was no official communication from the rugby journalists. Just some people were complaining a little bit about it. And so it is a complete mess. And here they are all out coming saying, no, we're not paying any attention to that. Instead of going, you know what, it hasn't been a great season, but we're trying our best to get things right on the field.
Oh, Ulster, I don't know where to start. Like, just a few things there that stood out to me was, one, up here, they really do see themselves as different, or they're very much kind of closed off. It shows their kind of the mentality they have going on at the moment. And the other thing is representing the people. I would wonder, what people are they kind of representing? That's the other thing. And
which section, which of the two ads that were taken in the Belfast Telegraph are they representing?
Yeah, it's just, you don't know, and I don't know if they know, or if they do know but they don't want to say it, and there's a part of that we don't know where they stand at the moment. That's even before you look at what's happening on the field. And that stuff does distract. But the thing about the news journalists, I saw Seamus Dooley, he's the head of the National Union of Journalists, come out last night very strongly saying, you know, this is wrong, and it is for one reason or another. You can't be keeping journalists out from press conferences. It doesn't do any good. It's not helping their reputation. They're firefighting to an extreme level. I mean, why would you create that trouble upon yourself? If they'd let them in to begin with, the news cycle probably would have moved on by now to something else.
They'd be already gone. It would have been one bad press conference, except you give a good performance in it. The chief executive comes out and earns his money and answers whatever questions they have and says what the plan is, and this would all be gone. Instead, it still rumbles on.
Absolutely, and if they even looked at it as from a PR point of view, if I was in there advising them, I'd say, look lads, just go out, do it. Yeah, you might have, be a bit warm, a bit hot, heated for the next 2 or 3 days, but the Champions Cup is happening following weekend. The rugby cycle will move on, there'll be something else. And we saw already the story with the Leinster players, being told, one, that you have to go to Ulster. So that just shows the cycle keeps going, but because they did this, we're still talking about them. And the thing is, there's nothing worse than journalists with a bone. They'll keep going now until they get in. Yeah. And then it'll be way worse when they actually get in. And
their CEO definitely has questions to answer. He must be feeling like he's on a hot seat at the moment. If you were advising those players, would you advise them to go to Ulster? Okay, this might further your international career, or it could be the death knell for it, because we don't know who the coach is going to be. We don't know if it's going to be any good. We don't know what other players they're going to sign. But we expect you to be one of the leaders of this. You're going to be the face of the franchise.
Yeah, it's a hard one.
Will I be welcomed up there?
Would you be welcomed up there when we don't know what their culture and ethos is? Do we know that you want to be involved in a team like that? And we just don't know that. There's too many unknowns. At the same time, if you need to be getting your game time in, and if that is a big influence on your international career, sometimes you do have to be a bit selfish. And that's the thing about athletes. They're different to us. They have to be selfish because they have a small window and there's a ruthlessness needed. So probably in the balance of probabilities, I would say consider strongly going.
Yeah. Right. I would be I would say Ulster says no, but
there is that too, you see. There's too many independent variables that we don't know about.
Yeah. It'll be very interesting to see what happens, and we'll obviously keep an eye on it here. The Guardian, Sensational Salah, Reds in the driving seat, but Roma have hope. Roma do indeed have hope with 2 very late goals. We'll get Pat Nevin's thoughts on all that in a couple of minutes' time from that one. The Irish News, very quickly to run through this one. The Monaghan-Tyrone clash set for TV blackout. This is Declan Bogue's story from yesterday. Carol Kane says that it's going to be deferred coverage only for that game, which it's genuinely one of the interesting games, one of the few interesting games that happens before the Super 8s actually is going to take place. Yeah, and again, as we were just touching on it there earlier, that is the conundrum, isn't it? It's deciding who plays what, why is it being shown, why isn't it being showed, and there's so many things that you just sometimes look and wonder, why are these decisions made for one reason or another? But the thing is, if that was showed, something else wouldn't be. And we'll be complaining about that then, I don't know. Yeah. Well, maybe there's one of those Leinster games that don't need to be shown. Maybe we don't need to see the Dubs first round game this year.
Maybe we don't. I personally could live without seeing it.
So if you were to swap Monaghan and Tyrone for one of the Dublin games, I think everybody would be happy. Apart from the Dubs fans, who can probably actually go to the game anyway, because those games, early games, won't sell out. Townend hit with 21 day for mystifying last fence manoeuvre. What the hell happened? We'll get John Duggan's take on that a little bit later on. What have you got for us?
I have lots. First one, big broadsheet. Is this camera here? It's the Times, and we have obviously Liverpool, and it's all Salah, 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 and we have lots of GA, and I'm going to fold it up because my hand is far too small. Gordon Darcy speaking as well about the move, about Byrne and Carberry. He's saying it would send a dangerous precedent, which kind of goes with what you were saying as well. You're a bit worried about it, and as well the Ulster Rugby story again. The news journalist still banned from Ulster Rugby, which we've just touched upon there as well.
Ridiculous behaviour.
Yeah. And moving on to the Herald, which is easier for me to hold up, obviously it's Liverpool again. And again, the Leinster story, Easton Siwa to retire. And the GAA story, a good story there. Conal Keaney saying he wouldn't have come out of retirement if he didn't think he could win.
Yeah.
Which I think is interesting, because for a lot of the time we've seen GAA players saying, oh no, we've great respect for the next opponent, I wouldn't look at winning. And all of a sudden now, between hurlers and footballers, they're coming out of the woodwork saying, yeah, we can win, which is good. I think it's a good mindset way to be. It's a good change.
Yeah.
I think. And
will their managers agree? I mean, I hope they do, but I'm not sure.
I'd imagine this kind of soundbite was probably agreed in advance. I would guess you wouldn't come out like that.
Damien Comer seemed very off the cuff. Yeah, we could beat Dublin.
Yeah, but I suppose Galway can say that now because they put it up to them big time.
Can you only say it when you've actually done it?
Well, you
like,
see,
is it okay to be like we're great, we got within a few points. It was still a game.
I think who has beaten Dublin? That's the other thing. You'd be a long time waiting for somebody to come out and say, because we know we can do definitively, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think it's a good confidence, and it might be a different tactic, because all of a sudden now Dublin are in a new perhaps mindset in their dressing room, thinking, oh, these lads think they can beat us, and that creates a whole new different mindset and precedent when you're playing. But can they do it? I don't know. League is a league. Dublin are a slow burning team. They were nowhere near firing at the top Dublin cylinders that we see in September.
No.
You could argue neither were Galway, but then as we've seen in the summer, Galway tend to start high and go down.
I know. Leave them alone, at least until they get beaten by Mayo.
Or Tipperary. And they won't get beaten by Mayo. Moving swiftly on, we'll go on to the Star, and again, obviously, it's Liverpool, and the very catchy headline, Cesar Salah, if you can say it that way. I personally don't have the accent to say that, but we know what they were trying to do there. We'll give them praise for that. And the Mirror as well, obviously, Liverpool again are smoking, and cool picture there, the smoking, and also an interesting piece about Arsenal and who will be the next manager, and they're saying Luis Enrique might be the next one. Perhaps?
Yeah, I'd be out on Luis Enrique. I think Luis Enrique is a short-term, 2-year manager who's going to come in and be all aggressive, as opposed to somebody who's going to put down roots.
Maybe that's what they need.
I think Mikel Arteta that's where I would be putting my money, just on how the ownership of the club works, and they like the fact that it's a young, hotshot coach coming from somebody else, weakening somebody else to get him.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe what they do need, though, is that short-term impact manager. Maybe after they might decide to go for a different kind of track. Yeah,
I definitely, there's going to be a massive reaction to, well, we're not getting somebody who's going to be here for 20 years. And
whoever gets there won't have any money either.
Well, so they say, but I think that's nonsense. I think that you'll be able to convince the new, and also you can just sell. They can sell a couple of players pretty quickly and decide, okay, we don't want them.
Yeah. So yeah, that's true. And the next one, I don't have the Mirror's headline, the Mirror here with me, or the Sun. Sorry, the Sun. I do have it here. And again, it's Liverpool and Dynamo Kiev, which is another good pun on the word Mo. And also a story on the inside, which is really sad to see. And it's really horrible that it's still happening. And that's Cyrus Christie, this time death threats, which is sad isn't even a strong enough word for it. It's abhorrent. It's awful that this man has to be kind of nearly fight. It feels like he's fighting this fight by himself.
It does, really. He's not getting enough support from Twitter, from football, just generally from society. It's grim. His Twitter feed is like an absolutely horrific place. And you would wonder why, not that I'm saying it should be happening anywhere, but I'm wondering why this man seems to be a target. Is it because they know that it affects him or what? But it's grim. It is. It really, really is. It's just, there's no other word for it. And do I have the Telegraph on me right here? No, I don't. Have the Telegraph. No, but again, it's Mo Salah again, and talking about how the next manager won't get money. Okay, so one last thing that we wanted to talk to you about was this BBC story today, and this is about the tennis match fixing corruption review to be published on Wednesday. So that's today. You were doing a little bit of reading about this, and it's not quite sure whether or not anything specific is going to come out. So we think there's been a whitewash of match fixing in tennis. This investigation into it was supposed to find that, but yet there's conflicting reports about whether or not it has been found or hasn't been found, which always smells like a cover-up.
Yeah, that's the thing. And apparently the heads and the people involved have had this for a week now in a massive non-disclosure agreement, and nothing actually has leaked. Now you can kind of see that with the conflicting reports. It's coming out today, I think, around 2 o'clock, but I just took cognizance of that it was £20 million to do this report, and we don't, and again, we are speaking a little bit in a vacuum because we don't know what's coming out, but it's a massive, the fact that they felt that they had to go that far to begin with means there must have been something smelling, in one sense, but on the other hand,
pretty expensive.
That's the thing. And you know what, at the same time, if they've actually found there's nothing wrong here, it's probably the best £20 million I'll ever spend. Yeah, that's the other way to look at it. Yeah,
if I mean, very difficult to get to the bottom of it, but if they've found some evidence, then that would be great. Okay, let's move on. We're going to start talking about the football last night. Kevin Kilbane on last night's Off the Ball, live from Anfield, with curious dress sense, talking about the fallout from last night.
Yeah, you said, I mean, you probably talk about that fourth goal from Salah, how he just ghosted past Jesus. Yeah. It was shocking defending. The goal that he scored to get the fifth, yeah, I'm with you. You're thinking that's it, game over. The buzz around Anfield, Joe, it was like, right, just keep going. Klopp was still urging them on. You're thinking this is going to be 6, 7, 8 quite easily. You've got 15, 20 minutes to go. You're 5-0 up. This could quite easily be 7 or 8 here. Not a bother at all. But all of a sudden, and it's something that Liverpool do, particularly Dejan Lovren. He becomes erratic when he tries to win the ball. So all of a sudden, it was just a simple ball, a diagonal ball. If you saw, you might have seen it early on this season, even Dzeko's goal against Chelsea, where he peeled away off the shoulder of the right-sided centre-half, on his left foot, great volley against Chelsea. Similar sort of movement, lovely ball, just clipped him behind, brought it down on his chest, and he finished it really well. But all of a sudden then, Lovren just became erratic. It was almost as if, right, I've made a mistake, I need to put it right. Yeah. And he started to try and force the issue, he started to try and make mistakes. And you watch him going, look, just calm yourself down, you're fine, you're 5-1 up. Then, James Milner was given, it was a harsh penalty, Joe. I think it actually hit his midriff first, and then bounced up onto his arm, so it was a harsh one. Brilliantly taken by Perotti. But it just puts it's a different mindset, I feel, leaving Anfield, the supporters here tonight, because they've gone from such a high within the space of 10 minutes of thinking, oh, here we go. They know what Roma did to Barcelona in the last round, so that's got to be in the mindset, given what happened as well to Liverpool again this season in the Champions League against Sevilla when they conceded 3 goals. So it is in the mindset, but I still feel, Joe, he took Mo Salah off as well, don't forget. He took Mo Salah off at 5-0, so that's maybe another turning point in looking at. They've got Mo Salah to come back in for the second leg. So, look, you're taking it, wouldn't you? If the Liverpool fan at the start of the game, you're taking a 5-2 win, but it's just how the mindset has changed now at the end of the 90 minutes.
Yeah, it is remarkable that a game that looked like it was completely toast suddenly is back in the melting pot after an end like that. What is the mindset for Liverpool heading into the second leg? We have a 3-0 lead and we defend it, or is it like, let's just score 1 because then they have to score 4, let's score 2 then they have to score 5? Like, what?
Liverpool, just the way they've been playing lately, like we were saying earlier, it's just so attacking. I think nearly would go against them to try and sit deep. It's not the way they play at the moment, and I think if they were to try and do that, they could actually end up undoing themselves if they're playing something that's unnatural to them. People were saying that Mo Salah being taken off as a turning point, and yeah, maybe it was, but on the other hand, we don't know if he had stayed there, would Liverpool have scored any more? Would Roma have had those 2 goals? We just don't know. And at the end of the day, if I was Jurgen Klopp, I'd be looking at that and thinking, let's keep this man fit. We've another leg coming. And I'd say they'll go with the positive mindset. They're going in the lead. This is half time. I
would definitely wrap him in cotton wool for the intervening period between there and then. Just
absolutely.
One more thing to show you here before we speak to Pat Nevin. This is Giorgio Wijnaldum and the influence that he had in the game. This is Kev afterwards saying that was one of the proper turning points in Liverpool's favour.
They were playing some good football. They were probably controlling the game. Strootman and De Rossi in midfield were controlling it for them. They created a couple of chances. I think you probably would have seen the strike from Kolarov that beat Karius that could have put them in front, really. Yeah. And it took maybe the injury to Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain just put them out of sync a little bit, Liverpool. They couldn't quite get settled in the game. Then Gigi Wijnaldum came on and it changed the game for Liverpool. Liverpool all of a sudden then were starting to exploit that high line that Roma were playing. Joe, it was just incredible how they continued to squeeze the game. It was just suicidal defending. It was just kamikaze stuff. It was just crazy to see a side that lacked pace defensively. Badio, Manolas and Jesus. He was just awful defensively because he kept squeezing. And all Liverpool kept him doing was diagonal runs, whether it was from Mane, whether it was from Salah. Something that we talk about tactically, what Liverpool do when they're moving it across the back line. Firmino wants to come a little bit deeper, and it just allows those two, with the pace he's got, to get in behind. And probably for about a 15-20 minute spell right at the end of the first half, they just tore Roma apart.
Yeah, unbelievable football from Liverpool at that absolute peak moment. Now, Pat Nevin, good morning to you. What did happen to Liverpool in that final 10 minutes? Before we talk about how amazing they were, let's talk about how bad they were for those final 10 minutes. What do you think happened?
There's loads of things happened. I mean, just as Kev was saying there, it's absolutely extraordinary the pace at what Liverpool played at for a vast majority of that game. And then you looked at, the defending with Roma. Suddenly the defending was absolutely a joke. They were looking around at each other. Simple thing where they had three centre-backs. One of the centre-backs goes and tries to mark Salah. Centre-backs can't go and mark a winger. It doesn't work. And of course, as you mentioned, their colour off against Salah. Well, that's a mismatch at the moment as well. So they got it all wrong, Roma, at that point in time. And then you watch the way that Liverpool are playing the game and the pace that are playing the game at. And I'm thinking to myself, right, you're going to absolutely explode and you're going to be exhausted in about 5 minutes, after the half time. And they kept on going, they kept on going, they kept on going. And then it took Salah off and just all the energy seemed to go. Now I don't know if it's Salah. I doubt it was Salah going off. What I think the problem was is you play at that tempo, even though you've got the whole of Anfield behind you, the noise was incredible, the spirit was great. They're human beings. I know they're footballers. I know they train hard, but they will tire. And you saw that they could not keep that high tempo stuff up for the whole 90 minutes, and that's why the game went back to 5-2.
Does it mean anything for the second leg other than Liverpool are really good and can actually easily get through this by scoring once or twice?
Obviously, they had that advantage against Manchester City, and they held on to it, and Man City couldn't come back. That's fine. That's good. That's very exciting for Liverpool. However, I was over in Seville when they were playing Seville. They were 3-0 up at half-time, and I was at utter collapse from Liverpool. So it's not beyond the bounds of possibility that this could be won. And remember, we're in the Champions League this season. Have a look what happened in Barcelona. Have a look. I was in Turin for the Juventus game against Real Madrid. 3-0 to Real Madrid, and you're thinking, well, that one's over. No, it wasn't. It was extraordinary. This Champions League this year is mad. And you add on top of that the fact that Liverpool seem to, though they've not only got one way to play, they can play other ways, but we know the way that they want to play. And they want to play a little bit high tempo, and they want to be attack-minded, and they want to get that extra goal. If they get one more goal, again, as Kev, I think, just said there, they'll probably go through. But it's not a foregone conclusion. There's no way it's a foregone conclusion. And have a look at their opponent's record at home, by the way. They don't lose many goals either. So it was that horrible moment when, it was 5-1 and you're thinking, yeah, it's still cool, it's still fine. And then it goes 5-2 and there's just a little seed of doubt. I mean, Liverpool are a brilliant team. Liverpool haven't lost a game in the Champions League this season. They're still massive favourites, but it's not done and dusted.
Let's talk a little bit about how good they were then in that first half and just how good that campaign has been as they've grown into the tournament as well. It looked for 75, 80 minutes that it was going to be one of those historic statement performances from a super club matching anything that any of their predecessors have ever done.
Yeah, I thought it was, I'd call it magical. I think it was a magical night. Anyone who's played at Anfield against Liverpool knows that feeling. It's just like a tsunami. It's coming towards you. It's the players, it's the fans, it's the occasion, it's everything. It just feels as if they've got 17 players in the field and you've got 7. It's a horrible feeling. And by the way, all their players are hell of a good as well. So the whole thing was like one of the great nights at Anfield. Got to see a lot of it's with the fans. They built it up before the game. They kept the noise levels up. They noticed the bits where, the opposition have the ball for short periods of time and the booing and the hassle that they were giving them, and then that helps their own players. So it does rate right up there. All the great nights. There's a semi-final of the Champions League. Of course it rates up there with the great nights. And then you add on top of it, Salah's obvious. Salah's just stupid. I'm beginning to wonder if he's actually really human at the moment. It's just so brilliant. He gets the ball on that left foot with that one he puts it into the top corner. And I bet you felt the same, Ger. You're thinking, he's going to score here. I know you're like 20 yards out. I know you're at a corner. I know you're at a terrible angle. But you're going to put that in the top back corner, and that's extraordinary. But you add the other stuff that was going as well. I mean, James Milner, as I understand, isn't in the England squad. I mean, what? Are you joking? He was absolutely extraordinary. And just going by the right, but Firmino as well. I mean, he just gets better and better and better. You could go on and on and on about it, but I would say one thing. The way they won back the ball and played at that tempo, which is Jurgen Klopp's concept, and then the way they held the ball, the bravery to do that, absolutely. That's up there with the great Liverpool teams.
Pat, we heard a little bit about the response from Klopp when the offer for Coutinho came in, and apparently he laughed and went, yeah, absolutely, he's going to be the most expensive sub in the world. There is a sense, though, that this has been a significant season of evolution, even from Klopp, when you think about the decision to spend the money on Virgil van Dijk. But you mentioned James Milner. Milner was a fullback last season and a really good, proficient fullback, but yet he was still a fullback in this team because that's where Klopp thought he was best suited. He has learned as well. He has become a better manager over the last 12 months.
Yeah, I would say so. But then you have to learn the kind of Premier League way as well. You have to learn the abilities of your players. If you have a look at what's happened even to Pep Guardiola, he's improved, hasn't he, over this season, because he's had a season in English football as well, and understanding these players and developing them and bringing one or two in. Van Dijk makes a massive difference, as you say, coming in. So, huge difference.
How and why?
How and why? For Liverpool, why Klopp's got better?
Yeah.
Well, I just think learning. I think learning the English game, learning the capabilities, the players learning what he wants. It's easy to say, yes, go out there and just play a game of football. But you say, right, I want you to close down there. And when he closed down first, you need to be right behind him. And by the rest of the team, you do exactly the same thing. You have to come along and cover in a certain way. And while you do it, don't leave any gaps at the back. Then look at, every single player. Is he capable? Is Moreno capable? Possibly not. Have we got anyone else? You get that boy Robertson for a song. Is he capable of doing that and playing with such arrogance last night? Yes, last night. Would he have been capable of doing the same level last season? He was a good player, but, Hull City, maybe he wasn't. But he's grown. So they're all grown into, they're all meshed together, they've all bought into it together. They've all reacted phenomenally to the manager's personality as well. And you've got to say, that's a big thing as well. The tactics that they're using just now aren't complicated. They're not over-sophisticated. It's a high press at certain points of the game. This is not new. This has been used since I watched it happen in the 80s. It's happened before. But you marry that with getting the ball back and then playing how they play with Salah and with Firmino and with the attacking lightning quick wing backs. I mean, the whole thing has knitted together phenomenally well. And you say, why is it better this season than last season? I'll be honest with you, I watched Liverpool last season. I thought, well, they're a good team and they might knock on the door of the top four. Never for a second thought they would get this far because I didn't think they would improve that quickly. And then you stick on top of that, and this is where you're asking me, but let's be honest, nobody knows anything. Did you really feel that Liverpool could keep this going after they sold Coutinho? I mean, I didn't. I mean, I thought, well, there's no way that, that the three front men will stay fit and on form for this period of time. There's got to be a wee bit of luck in that as well. But on top of that, you think he must have believed in his players and his capability of his players. Because how many people have you asked in the past about teams that tire at the end of the season? Well, have a look at Liverpool. They're playing that high tempo. Did they look tired apart from those last 10 minutes last night? No, they didn't. You asked me how he does it. I don't know. It's just really hard.
Well, just on that, is this sustainable, or should the Liverpool fans think of this as a beautiful unicorn season that they need to enjoy every second of?
Great question, to be honest. You look at Salah. I mean, can you keep that level up? If you keep that level up that he's kept this year, you are alongside Messi and you are alongside Ronaldo. If you keep that level up year on year on year. Now, we've seen lots of players who've had a phenomenal season and then they've had good seasons after that. Very good players. But but a season where it sparkles beyond belief. Now, that's Salah just now, and that's to some degree one or two other players in the team you might think of as well. There's certain players like Henderson's improving, there's no doubt about that. Milner, I was going to say he can't go on forever, but I'm beginning to question that, to be honest. They need to add. I mean, realistically, they must add a little bit more depth. You have a look at their bench, and it's a distance away from what it has to be, the very, very top teams. No matter how you take care of players, no matter how you train them, and how good your physio and your medics are, you'll get injuries, and you'll get injuries to important players. At the moment, I don't think Liverpool can afford that, but they've not had that many. It will happen. This is a World Cup year. Some of those players are going to be playing the World Cup. They're going to be tired next season. So can they do it next season? Yeah. With the same group? No. They need more numbers. And I think they'll get them. He's capable of getting them. And the decisions that Klopp and the group has made so far have been very good.
Yeah, there's certainly more hits than misses so far in the transfer market. You are in Munich, as far as I can make out. You're there for the game between Munich and Real Madrid tonight. Another one where I'm not entirely sure I know exactly what's going to happen, but it feels like both sides should be scoring goals this evening.
Well, oddly enough, yeah, you're right, I am in Munich. I've actually seen Real Madrid quite a lot this season. It's really weird. I mean, I've just been sent across to see them, and I've watched them away from home a lot of the time. Now, it started off, I was down at Wembley to watch them playing Spurs, and I thought, well, that team's past it. They look terrible, and I thought a lot of people felt the same. They're a great team, you know, the great run that they run in the Champions League for the last couple of years, but they just looked disjointed. They didn't. I mean, Spurs made them look old and tired and past it, and then they had a terrible season by their standards in La Liga, and you think, well, that looks as if it's gone. They need to completely rebuild that team, and then they just spent all their time and all their efforts in the Champions League. And slowly but surely, they've come back into it. I was in Paris for the PSG game, and once again, I thought the tactics were great. It's not the first thing you always say about Zidane, but the tactics were fantastic. And then over to Turin for that overhead kick that night. And I couldn't believe what they did to Juventus over there, because you watch Ronaldo walk out, and they've said it a few times now, but maybe no more so than that night in Turin. He walked out, the entire peacock look, the chest out, the kind of, right, everybody in this whole stadium, I want you looking at me all the time. And if you're not looking at me, there's something wrong. And they booed every touch he had, except for one, when he overhead kicked it and smashed it into the top corner. And they stood and they applauded him. And just watching it that night, it wasn't just Ronaldo, because, others were. Marcelo, again, he looked really, really sluggish back in the early times of this campaign, but he just looked world class again. So they time it. They're top players, and they decide when they fancy doing it, and they look as if they fancy doing it. And if I had to call it just now, I can't believe I'm saying it, I'd call this tie absolute favourites of Real Madrid. Even though you look at where Bayern are in the league, they're absolutely hammering the Bundesliga. Lewandowski's goal scoring is extraordinary. You've got Owen, you've got Ribery, you've got Müller, you've got phenomenal players. It comes to this point in time, and you look, Real Madrid know how to do this, and they time it, and they just save themselves for this. But a lot will depend on what happens tonight. It's a game over here at the Allianz. We know that Bayern are going to be really confident there. They really believe in themselves there. But in this, and I really want this game to be wide open and something still, on it for the second leg. Having said that, the way this Champions League going into this season, if it's 5-2 or 4-1 or 3-0, still open for a second leg, and it won't even matter who to.
Yeah, no, for sure. Pat, enjoy the game tonight. Thanks a million for joining us.
I'm looking forward to it. See you later.
That's a nice footballing picaresque he's had all the away games watching Real Madrid.
Very much so, yeah. It's not bad. Munich, is it, as well? No. And watching Real, I mean, I've seen them so often. It's a great complaint, isn't it?
Even when they were crap this season, they've been entertaining to watch.
Absolutely.
So looking forward to that tonight. Some of your comments coming through here. I'm going to read you these. The game is done and dusted, lads, says Lenny Clark, counting his chickens. Roma have a bit of confidence now to attack, and with no pace at the back, it'll be easy pickings for Liverpool. Where is this idea that Roma can do what City couldn't coming from, asks Trevor Connors. It's bonkers that you seem to think it's more likely that Liverpool will lose 3-0 in Rome than score 1 or 2 or even draw. Ridiculous. Where is it coming from? Rome, last time out against Barcelona, when they did exactly what they have to do this time.
Exactly, yeah.
We've literally just seen them do it, Trevor.
Yeah, there's a little bit of recent evidence there, and as well as that, this time it's in their patch, which will absolutely always make a difference as well. And also the fact that Liverpool, like we said, high intensity, and then they taper off, and that's the worry for them.
Are you messing, asks Carl Fitzpatrick. Taking Salah off, let Roma come back. It gave them a lot more time in the ball. The same thing happened against City in the first leg. And Philip Marney says, Nevin is spot on. Klopp is building something special there, what Liverpool fans have been screaming for the past 20 years. There is definitely something amazing about Klopp's presence and the prowling on the sideline and the thoughtfulness of it and the quality of football that his teams play and his ability to turn Mo Salah into Leo Messi.
Oh, he's like, I don't know what gift Jurgen Klopp has. I think part of it is that he's not afraid to show his personality. He's a thoughtful person, like you said. He seems quite intellectual. And the prowling of the sideline isn't done in a predatory way. It's kind of a supporting way. And you kind of feel like he's on your side, I think, when he's out there with those players. And that makes all the difference, I think. And he possibly gave them a little feeling of confidence that maybe they didn't have before, that he came believing in them. And if you've got that kind of belief, it has to elevate you.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the most charismatic figures that we've seen in world football in a long time.
Absolutely, and not afraid to talk outside football either. I mean, last week he interjected himself into the Brexit debate, and I can't see many other Premier League managers who'd also do that as well. I mean, he has all these different layers to him, and I think he probably brings that and expects that of his players as well,
Yeah, maybe Pep and maybe Wenger, but at least... it's obviously a completely different situation, and he's the perfect manager for Liverpool at this time. So, is it sustainable is the other question. Maybe the Liverpool fans should just accept that this could be one beautiful, shining outpost like Istanbul was, or maybe it's the start of something amazing, but I wouldn't be, again, counting my chickens on that.
It should be the start of something amazing if you look at his previous form and what he did over in Germany as well. But see, again, it's all these things of luck. I mean, touch wood, if Mo Salah got injured, then where would they be? Obviously they have Firmino and all those kind of things, but
what's
at
the
same
plan?
do they have one? And maybe they mightn't this season, but they might next season, and it seems to be the start of something good.
Yeah, okay. Just a reminder that, of course, OTB AM is brought to you this morning with Air, the home of Air Sport. You can get amazing live sporting content free with Air Broadband. We are going to talk racing in a couple of minutes' time with John Duggan, but first I want to bring you this. Michael Owen was on Off the Ball during the week. A really brilliant piece. Here he is talking about his mindset during the 1998 World Cup.
I went to the World Cup expecting to be an impact player, I must admit.
I saw your interview with Stan Collymore actually recently, and Hoddle did say that to you in La Manga.
Yeah, he says you're not going for the ride.
You'll be involved. That's a great thing to hear.
It is, but of course, being greedy, then I don't want to just be involved. I want to be starting every game. I want to be playing 90 minutes. I want to be captain. I want to be taking the penalties. If you haven't got that attitude, then you'll never survive.
Did you, in hindsight, have a really, and I mean in a good way, a real arrogance about you because you'd literally been the best player in the country right the way through the age grades? I mean, you were the main man.
Absolutely, you can't do anything. You can't get to the top of any profession, or get into an England team or something without having an inflated opinion of yourself, which is very hard to say and very hard to look back and think, "Cool, that's how I felt about other people." When I crossed that line, I didn't even know the opponent. We were playing Argentina. I'd heard of Batistuta because he was a great player. I didn't have a clue. I didn't study that. They will be worried about me. Right. Was this sort of type of attitude? It's a horrible thing. It is really hard, and I would never sort of recommend it on people because it turns you into a bit of a monster.
Yeah.
And then you've got to form back into normal life as well when you're off the pitch. I was all about exploding onto the scene. I'd never had any failure. As I say, I'd scored in every game, every debut I ever played. Why would this be? And I'm talking about this as my mindset back then. Why would this be any different?
Yeah.
I don't need to know who I'm playing against. Just give me the ball. That's all you need to do. was obviously my mindset.
Yeah, Michael Owen came across really well in that interview. The whole thing is available on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/offtheball. It's pretty interesting, isn't it?
really interesting and really honest. And he said something that's really hard to say about yourself, which is...
I was a bit of an asshole.
Yeah, bit of an ass, and also really big-headed. And sure, they were coming looking at me, and I didn't even have to bother looking at them because I am the star. It's up to them to try and stop me, and my brilliance will overcome. And what a fall when you realise that's not how life works.
I don't know if everybody knows this, but you work with teams and you work in performance and that kind of mindset stuff. Like, when you're dealing with people like that, do you just encourage them, or do you kind of say, it's not going to be like this all the time, so you need to ride this train for now, but you need to prepare for the day when the doubt and the other voice in your mind isn't you're brilliant, it's like, oh, you're not very good.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you always hear this cliche, there's no I in team. But the team is full of eyes, you know, but you have to make sure the eyes are thinking towards the team goal and the team mantra and the team motto and what the team stands for. And I think, like, the All Blacks do it really well. It's all about the jersey. It's never about the individual. It's about the person in the jersey. You could say the same thing maybe about the Kilkenny hurling team as well. And if you start thinking you're bigger than the collective, that the I is more than team, you're in trouble. And I think we've seen that especially over the years. This is probably why, and I'm projecting perhaps a little bit, but probably why England never perform as well as they should in big international competitions, and they get taken out by people like Iceland, because it's a collection of, we've just seen there, of stars coming in saying they're worrying about me, I don't know who this guy is, I don't care, he's probably a butcher at home. But the thing is, these people can do damage if your mindset isn't there, you know.
Well, the cult of the England captain immediately in football immediately separates that captain from everybody else and says, oh, you are the person that we must follow into battle, as opposed to you're just one of us and we all have leadership talent. Absolutely, yeah. And I think that's why he's illustrated it really, really well there, because it'd be very, very hard for somebody to come up out loud and say that. But the trouble is, they don't say it, or they do say it, and they seem to nearly carry this power with them. It's very difficult. It might be very difficult for a manager to pull Michael Owen aside and say, dude, you're not a superstar here. You're just part of the cog. You know, one of the cogs, you know. Is that? Oh, but in certain instances, when you do have an 18-year-old wunderkind who's about to burst onto the world scene, do you just let him go because he's only 18 and you say, look, no. But then how do you make sure that he performs at that level? Constructive criticism, I think, is the way to go with that. Who wants a precocious 18-year-old? When has that ever helped any situation in life? Well, in anything, even beyond up until penalties against Argentina, you would have said that Michael Owen's precociousness was perfect, because it got them through a situation where, you know, that England team was, in retrospect, really good. But yeah, like there's a difference though between precociousness and confidence. You can tell somebody you're playing really, really well and pick up on the points they're doing really well, but you also have to, and it doesn't matter if you're 18, 28, 38, you need to be reined in every once in a while, especially if you're great at what you do. It doesn't, even beyond football, all types. Think about any job, any walk in life. If somebody's really good at what they do, great. But if they don't have the humbleness to go along with it and the respect for others, it's only going to go so far, and then it does create that fall down that he's eloquently really described. Yeah, he did win the Golden Boot European Footballer of the Year. Absolutely, I know we're being very hard on him. Yeah, you know, but that's because he was very honest and open and hard about himself, which is great to hear. And possibly because he had a nice personality behind it all, and it must be very hard. You think, well, you're 18. Well, that person having the ability to chat like that, kind of almost as if he's astonished by himself, is a massive difference from the depth that we would have perceived to have about Michael Owen, even from his football commentary, where he got kind of thrown into the co-commentary role very early on and was expected to be successful, and then wasn't really successful because people were comparing him to Gary Neville. But like, I don't know, there was in that interview, comes across really well. So yeah, very much so. And the thing is, that was comparing apples and oranges as well. You know, I mean, he was thrown in, like you said, and then he was stating the obvious, and you'd be thinking you're waiting right for what's Michael Owen's next obvious statement. But I think even in his commentary and his co-analysis, he's evolved as well. He's learning, and I think that's the big point to take from this. He's willing to learn. Yeah. How many other people out there aren't? Far more human than we would have anticipated before you heard that piece. As I said, it's available for the whole thing, is available on our YouTube channel. Now, just very quickly, Andy Lee was on the show last night talking about drug testing. This is the continuing fallout from Saul Canelo Alvarez positive test. Have a look at this.
I was never randomly tested as a professional boxer. Never randomly tested.
Oh my God! So you
can do what you want.
You can do what you want.
And it's like at that level where, okay, you get at championship level, you get tested after fights. You should do, and I did after at high level profile fights. I got tested,
but like,
you
knew when the fight was on.
The fights, yeah.
So I mean, you know exactly. You dope to the gills, and then when you know you're getting up to the fight, you stop and you pass.
Yeah. But not only that, like the times when I was fighting guys who I was fighting like journeymen, I was never tested. They were never tested, and that's the most dangerous, because one fight has such an advantage already that if they're doping or on any substance, the damage they could do could be, you know.
Yeah.
fatal.
Yes.
And no, boxing has a huge issue with doping, and not that I suspect a lot of fighters are doping, but they might well be. I personally, I never came across any of it until when I fought Chavez. That was the worst I'd experienced it. There was no out to fight doping, and they more or less, without doing it in front of me, would let me know that they were going to cheat. You know, that this is what they were doing, and that was just to demoralise me and let me think that I didn't have a chance of winning.
How did they let?
Yeah, that was the stuff about Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. was pretty amazing stuff from Andy. That's kind of the first time that I really remember anybody openly speaking about the doping in boxing. The reason there's no out of competition testing for boxing is because they don't have any employer. They're not a member of any federation. They're not actually aligned with a single boxing union. They don't work for FIFA the way a footballer is ostensibly managed by FIFA or UEFA or the Premier League, or there's no governing body. You fight for a belt, you have a contract to fight for that belt, and then you get the belt, but you don't actually work for the WBA or the WBC or any of those things. And this is why the boxers signing up to testing in advance of, so Mayweather-Pacquiao, for example, you remember that there was a big hoo-ha about whether or not there would be blood testing. That was one of the reasons that they wouldn't, Pacquiao wouldn't sign up to the fight for years, and then they end up getting VADA, which is the Vegas anti-doping agency, to agree to randomly test them in advance of a fight. But it's for a specific period of time. It's for the 2 or 3 months that they're in training before the fight. So anybody can dope up to a certain point. You finish your cycle and then you get into the out of competition testing, but it's not really out of competition because you're in your training cycle for the next fight. That's why there never has been and there never will be out of competition testing for fighters, because nobody wants to catch the fighters who are doping. And it's why it's remarkable that Canelo has been caught, because you'd want to be pretty thick to get caught when there's no out of competition testing. So, John Duggan, good morning to you.
Ger and Máire, how you doing?
I had a really good day yesterday.
True self, Ger. You said it yesterday in the show. You're doing the tips this morning. I'm not doing the tips.
I've just got to check my WhatsApps, and unfortunately there's nothing there, so I've got nothing for you today.
Oh, okay. Right, I'll have to just try and pull it out of the fire after yesterday. What a bizarre day.
Yeah, so Robbie Power has just tweeted.
Yes.
Is this the, it's taken me a few hours to calm down from the very unfortunate incident yesterday at Punchestown race with Paul Townend. Nobody feels worse than him. Just human error. # no hard feelings. # brilliant jockey. We can show this again, right?
Yes.
So let's just remind everybody of exactly what happened.
Yeah, this is the final, second last fence. Monolith falls and invitation only is brought down. Album photo is left in the lead here, and that's Paul Townend riding him. Looks behind him, slows down, then veers off to his right, takes out Finian's Oscar, crashes through the rail before the final fence, leaving the storyteller for Gordon Elliott to win the race. Huge implications for the title race. There was €140,000 swing if Album Photo had won and Finian's Oscar was second. So Gordon took 90,000 out of the first 3 in that race, and now the lead is 405,000 going into day 2 of Punchestown. But obviously, we don't know what actually was going through Paul Townend's head. We still don't know. Now, I'm sure we'll find out today.
It looked a bit like, it looked a bit like he thought the course, you know, I'm not in any way defending what happened, but it did look as if he thought like there was a problem with the fence, and it's the type of move you would make if you urgently had to get across the track to avoid the fence, which doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. Usually there would be, say, guys with flags there, or to his right.
At the National, they had to avoid a fence the second time round this year.
Yeah, and generally that's well flagged up well beforehand, so you got plenty of time to move.
Yeah, it's never the last.
Yeah, and if it was, say, so they go on 2 circuits in that race. So say if there was an injury in the first circuit, they'd dial off the fence, or they'd make sure that the jockeys have plenty of time to go around. But when I was looking back at the footage, he wasn't even looking ahead of him, and I didn't see anybody to his right that was making an indication that you need to get out of here. It's almost like somebody said something to him behind him. That's what we believe from us reporting the Irish Independent today, is that he might have heard a call and looking behind him, and then I got to turn quickly, and then Finian's Oscar went to the right as well, and then they both went out. From what Robbie is saying, and from what Mick Fitzgerald is saying on Twitter as well, I think it was a bit of a brain freeze. I think he's a human being. He made a mistake. Obviously, we'd love to hear his side of the story. And then if he says that he had a brain freeze and made a mistake, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
He's a human being. I never remember Paul Townend having any incident in his career before. He's a very good jockey. He wouldn't be Willie Mullins' top jockey this week if he didn't have an impeccable reputation. So it's just one of those things. But I'm disappointed that, from a public relations point of view, that we didn't hear anything from the stewards. That I'm sure he obviously got that 21-day ban for dangerous riding, one of the harshest penalties you can give. But surely if that ban was administered, then the stewards would have got his explanation, maybe spoken to the trainer, Willie Mullins, who we believe had left the course by the time people got the chance to speak to him. And then the stewards maybe should have issued a statement and said, look, this is what happened. We've taken a series of events. We've administered the suspension, and then people will know. And then you don't have people on social media talking through their pockets and going crazy and making spurious allegations about Paul Townend.
Johnny Ward says, Robbie Parra, class act. I'm told the Turf Club will likely furnish more details on the steward's interview this morning. I also understand the Turf Club officials' reluctance yesterday was out of consideration for the jockey.
Would it be normal? I know you mentioned there about, flagged well in advance if things have to change or if you have to skip a jump or whatever, but it did look like you said, that he heard something behind him.
Yes.
Would that be kind of abnormal, normal, unusual?
Generally, you see these jockey cams of races. I've seen it of the Grand National, and it's actually worth anybody watching it who's got an interest in sport or racing, because what you see on the television screen is nothing really like what the jockeys experience. Like if you look at Many Clouds winning the Grand National on that jockey cam, it's on YouTube. Often when they're in front, they're just going. They're not. They're kind of oblivious. Okay, they might see somebody in their shadow, but you often see these close finishes in races. Like in the Grand National, Tiger Roll won the Grand National. Davy Russell wouldn't have known until after he crossed the line who was beside him. Yeah. But who was beside him? Even who, like, it was David Mullins of Pleasant Company. So I found it's a strange situation that a jockey would start looking behind him the way he did, slowing down and then veering to the right. I mean, I've never seen anything like before. The last time I saw something as bizarre as this in a racetrack was 12 years ago, when a jockey, Roger Loughrane on Central House, mistakenly mistook the winning post, started celebrating, and then realised that the winning post was 50, 100 yards down the line. Made an honest mistake, a genuine mistake. And I think we just had a bit of a brain freeze and a genuine mistake here. But if that's the case from Johnny Ward is saying, then that's a good thing. That they obviously, I'm sure Paul Townend is gutted. He's been punished. He's forfeited his riding fee, and hopefully Willie and Paul will have something to say about him. And hopefully today he'll bounce back and have some winners. Yeah. So the ban doesn't kick in until the end of this meeting. Is that generally what happens? Yeah, that's generally the case. Yes, you're kind of given a few days to. Yeah, but come back out and get back on the horse. The thing about it is, it's in public view. This is one of the only race I actually got to see yesterday. It was at a course, and I turned up and I was following Monolly, who I had money on, and this is like in prime time. It's 6:45 on national television. Yeah, like there's no hiding place. So you feel very sorry for the guy. Actually, that's my general emotion about it. But today is another day, and let's hope it can be forgotten about quickly. I mean, he's got his punishment, hasn't he? Yeah. So I do actually have a tip for today. It's yeah. Well, Dorking Boy at 16 to 1. Oh, the English horse, the English horse in the bumper. Tom Lacey sending him over 20 to 1. Down to 16, yeah. Right. You've moved the market already, Ger. It was 20 last night, but by the time I woke up this morning, it was 16, unfortunately. Well, he's got a good record, Tom Lacey, in these races, and he actually sold, I think, Blackbow, the Willie Mullins horse, who's 4 to 1 in the race to Willie. So he is good with these young horses, so I definitely think he's got a good each way chance. And also, Tom Siegel, price-wise, in the Racing Post, put him up, Ger. So that's whether he or you are an exalted company, we're not so sure of that. Right, okay, so what have you got for us today? What do you think is going to happen? Is it Gordon Elliott's to lose now at this point, or is it still too early in the week? I think it's Gordon Elliott's to lose. But I think they need to run Sam Crow still in that champion hurdle on Friday. I think they need to do that to possibly seal the deal. So now's the time to get on Sam Crow. 7 to 4. Yeah, it's not as simple as that. Mellon's a good horse. Nearly won a champion hurdle there. I'll be waiting. But I know what you're saying. Wait until first of all he's declared. Yeah. But Punchestown is strange. I mean, you Cheltenham, you Aintree, you have Ferry House, you have 3 soft ground festivals. Like, I know you had your brilliant win yesterday, but if you were looking for favourites yesterday, or like doing what I was doing, you'd be just washed out. Like the shortest price winner yesterday was 9 to 2. You just wait and see, backed from 40s into 16s. You had draconian 33s into, I think, 22 to 1, 25 to 1 that won. True Self, the horse you backed, was 22 to 1 in the morning. If you want to back horses today, folks, you need to be doing it now, because I think the odds are generally going to be reduced throughout the day. You need to be getting the early prices now. That's what I would say. So some strange results. Punchestown can generate strange results. Don't be afraid of Willie Mullins' second, third string. He had De Cronian yesterday, and he had that horse True Self. They weren't ridden by the top jockey, who was Paul Townend yesterday. So the only horse I'm having a bet on today is in the same race as yours, Ger. In that bumper at 6:05, the champion bumper, Felix de Gie, Desjy, Felix de Gie for Gordon Elliott.
We were on this at Cheltenham.
And the horse at Cheltenham was way too free, too exuberant, pulled too hard, lost his chance in terms of his behaviour. But he was still right there, and they rarely had runners at Cheltenham. Duggan House stud, Michael O'Leary. 10 to 1, I think he's definitely a chance of finishing in the frame at 10 to 1 for Barry O'Neill, who rode the winner yesterday for Gordon at the other bumper, Commander of Fleet. So Felix de Gie is my bet of the day each way. I'm not having any other bets. In terms of the Gold Cup, there's lots of question marks. Vic.
But can I ask you about what happened to Duggan yesterday? We were...
Well, Willie said that Paul wasn't too happy with him when he got off the horse. So I think looking back on it now, sometimes horses, when they have injuries, are never the same.
Yeah.
And I think you're hoping
possibility about that, isn't there?
There's a possibility that horses sometimes are never the same when they've had that injury, and I think that's what we were hoping wouldn't happen, but I think that's what happened.
It was a competent performance. It wasn't one of those it was never really in contention.
Yeah, but he wasn't on fire. It was just fine. It was. Like Undersow had an ordinary performance himself at Cheltenham, won a Fairy House. Duggan at his best to be beating Undersow in that race, and that's why Paul Townend picked him. But he was just a little bit flat, and I think that suggests to me that horses after injuries,
Yeah.
So the Gold Cup at 5:30 is the big one, but just lots of question marks. Bell's Hill, if the Grand National has not left its mark, is a fresh enough horse this season. He's a 9 to 2 shot. Bell's Hill will like the going right-handed. Kilolta Vic will need to jump better. Road to Respect does set the standard. He's won over course and distance. Once again, did he have a hard race in the Cheltenham Gold Cup? So Total Recall didn't run any kind of race in the Aintree Grand National. It's not a race that we want to be having a bet in. The race before that, Next Destination in the 3 mile novice hurdle, is a solid favourite of 15 to 8 in that Blackout, the horse he was second to behind Sam Crow at Cheltenham, won at Aintree last time out, so the form has worked out. Kilbrick and Storm is a Cheltenham winner. There is a horse there, number 10, Disco Rama, could have a chance of finishing in the frame for Paul Nolan. I followed this horse, was second behind Blow by Blow at Cheltenham from a mile back, powering up the hill. Another 4 furlongs today. I'm not having a bet on it, but Disco Rama could be worth €1 each way, 25 to 1. But Felix de Gie is the one I like. But first race is a handicap, is very, very trappy. I
spotted that one there just because of the name. I wonder who picks horses on the names. There's one called O'Calla.
28 to 1, Máire, for Peter Fahey. What do they say? Had been running over fences for almost 2 years until chasing home a runaway winner over hurdles at Thurles last month. Remote 6th and 2 mile 6 furlong Ferry House handicap last time. They're just stating the facts. They're not even giving an opinion on it, Máire. But sometimes your theory is probably better than mine.
Why are runaway winners at Thurles so far down the betting and like 2 weeks later and over a fairly similar distance? Is that not like actually a really good bet?
Chasing home a runaway winner.
Oh, chasing home a runaway.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Chasing, yeah.
Okay, grand, yeah.
A good
that's
6.
different.
The 640 Blast of Cumin could run well for Robert Tyner. Has been running consistently in handicaps. Blast of Cumin, number 16 in the 640. Once again, not a race I'm that keen on having a bet in because these handicaps are very difficult. Shanahan's Turn was second in the Topham Chase at Aintree. Woodland Opera has got good course winning form for Jessica Harrington. But it's really a day to just be careful, folks. The one I like is Felix de Gie. I'm backing him the moment this show finishes.
What type of a day is today? So what are most of the races today? I mean, is it a mix?
It's a mix. We have 3 grade 1s. We got that novice hurdle, the 3 mile novice hurdle, which Next Destination, Willie Mullins and Paul Townend have our favourites for. Blah 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 is a Cheltenham winner. It's not a bad race. We got the Gold Cup, which is probably the feature race of the week. Lots of horses which have had past stories in there. Ed Wolford, Joseph O'Brien, Jack Adam, a veteran now. Sub-lieutenant for Henry de Bromhead, probably an outsider. But Road to Respect won at Christmas at Leopardstown and does set the standard for Noel Meade, who actually is in really good form. No Mead as a trainer you want to be following. I was looking at Joey Sassy yesterday, didn't back him, and in that race you won, Ger, and he was second. No Mead's horses are doing well at the moment. I'll be keeping an eye on No Mead's horses and bumpers and that. And the other great one is the one that you have, Dorking Boy, in, and I've got Felix de Gea in. Okay, so hopefully that's plenty for people to get their teeth into today. If the champion hurdle at the end of the week does come down to those two, at what point is a good time to get involved? You think Mellon's going to win anyway? No, I'm not sure he's going to win, but I don't know if I'd be steaming in it. Whatever is it, 5-2 or 9-4? 7-4 at the moment. 7-4 into Sam Crow. Sam Crow is an exceptional horse, but is he certain to run? I don't know. I'm just generally, I'm not one of these players. I don't think that way. I kind of always think on the day. Why do you think it's unlikely to run at this stage? Like, I'm not saying he's unlikely to run, or what would be the determining factor is how much of a lead Gordon has and how today goes and how tomorrow goes. I think they'd rather not run him, to be honest. I think they'd rather keep him as a novice. But I think if they feel that this is going to be pretty close, then they'd run him. Yeah. But generally it's not a policy for the O'Learys to run novices in champion events. That's why I'd be a little bit reluctant to get involved until I see him on the day. Is the theory behind that because then next year you get him, you get preferential treatment, or you kind of... No, it's just more for the horses, that the horse is not in difficult races before he is like fully formed and fully mature at his peak. Yeah. That you're running these hard races and that might take a bit of an edge off you. Okay. I think that's generally the thinking. And Mellon is a good horse, and Mellon is an improving horse. So I think the fact that yesterday Gordon had the first three in that bumper as well, the one Commander and Fleet won, at one stage is about 250,000 in it. Now it's back to 405,000. Today will tell a lot. That Gold Cup once again a €275,000 race. So that's the good plot line. And obviously hopefully we'll hear now from William Mullins and Paul Townend today and just get this a line drawn under this, and we all move on, and that's all cool. Good stuff, John. Thanks very much for that. So Felix de Gea, yes, is the tip for today. That's it, folks. Right, Conal Keaney was on the show last night on News Talk and came into studio to talk about a good bit, really, his career as a hurler and a footballer, his decision to retire and to come back. And well, he's coming back because he thinks that this Dublin team are capable of winning some stuff. Here's a bit from last night. Have a look.
I don't know, like, I think probably it was the right thing for me to do at the time, I think, to leave it at that stage. I didn't see myself coming back playing with Dublin, really, I suppose. But look, I think if you ask any probably club player at my age, if someone rings you to go back playing inter-county and you have a chance of doing it and there's no promises made, you just if you're able to play, you're able to play regardless. I think 9 times out of 10 you take that chance.
Conal Keaney, I think, fighting the dying of the light, but did say publicly a couple of times that actually he thinks Dublin can win in All-Ireland. Optimistic would be the way I put that. I could be eating my words come August, but they have the ingredients perhaps, but it's probably a season or two early, I'm guessing, for them. Hurling is so competitive, any of the top 6 teams you could say could win it. And they're not one of them. Exactly, yeah. Exactly. They'll probably take a scalp, absolutely. I don't know if it'll be Kilkenny in the first round. I think they've Kilkenny and Wexford away. Yeah, well, they've Kilkenny in Parnell Park. Right, okay. So, but I'm not sure. It's possible, but I still would veer toward Kilkenny. Yeah. But at the same time, it's great that he has that belief, and the fact that that's keeping him going, coming back. It's fantastic to see and hear. But yeah. Well, let's talk about that bullishness a bit, because we've got Mike Quirke. Mike, good morning to you.
Morning, guys.
Damien Comer is somebody who also this week has been bullish about his team, and you know, in fairness, we actually really like it. Everybody thinks that it's about time people told the truth when they were asked about how they're going or what their chances are, and Comer was like, I think we can put it up to Dublin. Is he right? Is he right to say it, and is he actually telling the truth as well? Is he right? Can Galway put it up to Dublin?
I think they definitely can put it up to Dublin. I mean, they showed in the league final, albeit a league final, and probably neither side had 100%. They were still right there as the clock ticked into the red number. So I think they absolutely can, and they found this system, you know, where they're playing that defensive stuff and counter-attacking at pace, and it's really working for them. But in terms of the interview stuff, I hate that when guys come out with this, you know, bland, like just kind of totally neutral. Yeah, it's great, and we'll give them all the respect. I think it's great to have a bit of honesty and a bit of bit of bullishness, as you call it, just to say, yeah, I'm not cocky or arrogant here, but I think if we get our ducks in a row, we got a great chance of rattling anybody. And it's nice to see that kind of confidence, and it's nice to see the likes of Kevin Welsh allowing players, that freedom to actually go and be a little bit more honest in interviews. Now, I'm assuming Kevin Welsh allowed him that freedom. Maybe when he got back to training, Kevin Welsh had something else to say to him. But it's nice to hear that from players, and it makes the thing a little bit more real when you hear guys talking like that publicly.
Like, we've an awful lot of blandness as well in all these interviews, so it's refreshing. But I suppose we've seen Gaelic Games managers all over the country fearing that this will be held up now in the dressing room up in Mayo as they train. Like, is that a factor at all? I mean, you've been there. Does that make a difference?
I mean, you never want to say stuff that is going to be thrown back in your face, because obviously, if Galway go and play Dublin the next time they play and Dublin beat them by 20 points, people will be regurgitating what Comer said and how we can beat Dublin and all this. So you never want to give people ammunition to fire back at you, obviously. But I mean, if you genuinely believe it, and you're not being completely outlandish. I mean, if Galway had been beaten by 15 points by Dublin in the league final, Comer couldn't come out saying this stuff. But obviously, there's a belief and there's a confidence growing within that Galway squad that, we can rattle the best teams out there, and this is how I feel right now, and I'm actually going to answer the question as honestly as I can. And you have to respect that, and the whole nature of it is just, you don't want to give people ammunition. But I mean, if you believe it and you feel you're going the right direction, then it's great. I love it. I like to hear a guy talking with that kind of confidence.
Yeah, part of this is fake it till you make it, right? Part of this is actually talking yourself into actually believing that you're not already beaten by Dublin when you go out to play them.
100%. Yeah, and I mean, I don't think, like, I don't know Damien Comer very well. The guy's playing unbelievable football, but I don't think he's even, I don't think it's a psychological thing. I think he actually just believes what he's saying. I think he believes that in the setup they have, in the team they have, in the direction they're going, I think he believes that, we're actually capable of beating the best team in the country, a team undefeated for a number of years. And I think it's really genuine, and it's really refreshing, and it's nice again, because you've got counties now, no more than Dublin and other counties that have media managers, and their guys are trained what to say and what not to say, and it's like we've got Galway kind of just on the way up on that curve before that stuff has infiltrated their whole campaign, and it's fresh and it's new, and it's nice to hear.
Absolutely, and as well as that as well, if anything, in the last year or so, we've learned that Dublin, while Mayo didn't manage to beat them, Galway didn't manage to beat them in the league, but it showed that they're not invincible. And I suppose maybe this is just another way to put another chink in that armour as well, and show that teams do believe they're going in, and it's good for the fans to see as well, and it's good for those of us who are paying tickets to go in to see that teams are going in with the belief. It's not just going in, I'm sure the Dubs are going to do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I mean, at the moment they probably are invincible, because they haven't been toppled in a championship game in whatever it is, 3 or 4 years. But absolutely, you want teams, and it looks like that gap has narrowed a little bit. Especially this year, there's a lot of teams that seem to be getting a little bit closer to them. But the real test of it obviously will come when we get to August and we get to the Super 8s and semi-finals and finals. And look, they're still the best team in the country by some distance. I mean, the fact that they've won so many finals and big games by small, tight margins, I think is an even, it's an even better thing for them. If they were blowing out everybody by 10 or 20 points, that's one thing. But the fact that they have such composure and such ability in the last 5 minutes of a game that's so crucial, I think that just marks them out as even more impressive in my book. But look, until somebody topples them, they're obviously the team to beat. But again, it's just only a small thing. But it's nice to hear. It's nice to hear from the point of view of from where we are now, people that aren't actually playing the game. It's nice to hear guys coming out and saying, yeah, look, we're training just as hard. We're doing all the work we're supposed to be doing. We think we found something here that's going to really work for us. And yeah, we fancy giving them a rattle. And look, they have enough to do now to beat Mayo in a couple of weeks' time. And maybe, if they get beat by Mayo, people will be talking about Comer, shouldn't have been talking about Dublin. But look, he was asked the question. The guy answered the question as honestly as he could. Yeah,
let's just talk briefly about Galway then. Where are they? Because if you think back to this time 12 months ago, they were in a Division 2 league final against Kildare that everybody said was one of the worst games they'd ever seen in Croke Park. Yet here they are 12 months on, and we're talking about them being realistic, maybe not All-Ireland contenders, but it's certainly a team who can go deep into the summertime and, will cause significant difficulties for anybody in Galway if they make the Super 8s. So how have that transformation happened, and what's the realistic gauge of where they are?
Well, I mean, like the obvious thing is they have made big improvements, obviously, from last year. And I think the biggest thing has been the structural difference between this year and last year. And I mean, I just looked at, I remember that quarter-final last year, I was above it at Kerry against Galway when they were just completely wide open at the back. You know, it was the Donaghy game when we got to go with the left leg, first time ever in his life. So he kicked the ball with his left leg and it flies into the top corner. They just looked wide open at the back and they were torn asunder by the Kerry forwards. Now, there was still a threat going the other way and they were able to create goal chances and take goal chances. But then the next time I saw them was in the league game here in Tralee during this winter, and they were just a completely different team. And they actually looked more like Donegal, you know, circa Jim McGuinness than they did Galway the previous year. And it's just structure there after developing this system really quickly, it seems, where you know, I know it's been mentioned many times now, where they're just playing that little bit more defensive. And they just have such athletes around the middle of the field to be able to get up and down the pitch. That they're just causing teams, you know, an awful lot of problems, because it's not something you ever associate with Galway. It's not something Galway ever done before. Have such a kind of a defensive mindset first, and then hit you on the break, and they've just found this, and it's really working for them. And it's not taking from their scoring, which is, you know, when Donegal started the first with Jim McGuinness, it was really defensive, and they were winning games 9-8 or 9-7, and then it took a year or two to actually transform into an offensive thing as well. Whereas Galway seem to have that kind of already done. And, you know, the Mayo game is going to be a big test, obviously, now, and that'll probably be a better indicator of exactly where they are, because I'm sure Mayo are loving all this stuff about, you know, Galway being, you know, All-Ireland contenders, and we're all talking about Galway. They must be just, you know, rubbing their hands together, waiting for that game, you know.
Yeah, that's the thing. You just mentioned Mayo there as well, about how we've seen articles today written by Mike Finnerty about how Mayo aren't happy about this club championship window there in April, because obviously they're saying it's all well and good the Dubs releasing their players for their club. They're not playing until much later in the summer, whereas we're putting our lads out on the 13th of May. And obviously, as well as that, Mayo, like you said, are probably delighted that they're in the long grass now, where Galway were the last 2 seasons. All of a sudden, they're now Galway on top, and that's exactly what Mayo would love.
Yeah, and I mean, Mayo, it's just seems to be an annual occurrence now that we're kind of writing off Mayo, and yet every year, you know, they seem to just again come back and find a way to get themselves back to the latter stages of the championship, and they just have that group that you know, people say. I read something there. Was it Chris Barrett or somebody was interviewed, and he was asked about, you know, how is it they can keep coming back, and it's the same answer. Like, what else are we supposed to do? We can't, you know, pack up tent and just forget about it. So they just have a really talented group of players, obviously, and they got really good leaders inside in their dressing room, and they're going to be thereabouts again. You know, now the club championship is a different thing. I mean, that's something that the GAA got to sort out, obviously, and if they're going to make April this month, then they got to make the same thing for everybody across the board, and not leave it up to individual county boards to pick and choose, you know, what games they play as such, and at least that way you're creating a little bit more of a level playing field, I suppose, you know.
One of the best stories of last summer was the Carlow football team and the success that they had in the championship, first time in generation that they'd managed to win a couple of games back to back and just cause a bit of momentum for themselves. Then they managed to maintain that momentum through the league campaign, getting promotion as well. Now all of a sudden Brendan Murphy, who you legitimately think could play Division 1 football for almost any team in the country, probably any team in the country really, isn't going to be part of the setup because he's heading to the States for the summer. It's a huge setback for them, but it does speak to the difficulties that the smaller / so-called weaker counties have when the summertime rolls round and the carrot gets dangled from these American clubs who have loads of cash. Why the hell wouldn't you go?
Yeah, I'd love to know where they're getting all the cash. It must be serious money floating around the place over there. But like, I read Turlock O'Brien yesterday. Their manager said, you know, that it doesn't diminish their ambitions for the championship. But I mean, it obviously does. If your best player or one of your very best players, you know, is moving across the water and going playing ball in the States for the summer, it says, look, you know, the championship isn't our priority. And he said the same thing. He said our next big priority is staying in Division 3 next year. And I mean, like, there's obviously, and we won't get into it now, but there's obviously a much wider problem, you know, for all these counties. that their main competition of the year is their league. It's all about the league for them. It's all about getting promotion, and it's all about now staying in a higher division next year. So effectively for Brendan Murphy, his goal has been already achieved by with Carlow this year, and that shouldn't be the case. Obviously, I mean, it should be a case that they have an ambition to go and win something, whether that's a provincial title or it's a new structured competition for them that gives them a meaningful game that they have a chance to win something. But it's a further indictment that the system for the likes of Carlow is not fit for purpose, and their league is their sole ambition in the year. And now, somebody like Brendan Murphy, their best player, is after taking off to the States because, look, I can get whatever amount of money I can get over here, and really I have nothing to play for back here in the championship. And that's just it's just a further kind of a black mark, I think, on the existing championship structures that we have.
We heard when we were over in the States last time that 220 grand was the cost of preparing one of the club teams in the New York Senior Championship. And not the average cost, but one club had spent that. And I was like, well, that's a whole heap of cash for, I don't know how many championship games there are, but not that many.
Yeah, Jesus, I thought you were going to say they were after throwing him 220k there. That's a crazy amount of money. Yeah, it's like it's very difficult. I mean, you can even go down lower to club players and how many guys leave Ireland every summer to go over to the States. And I know that's a rite of passage, and guys want to go over and have the crack for the summer and all that. But it's also a cash thing. Like it's a big cash incentive. Guys are, instead of staying around playing league football with your club here, you can go over to New York or Boston or San Francisco and do the same thing maybe and get a couple of grand in your pocket. And I'm sure for the higher end guys, the likes of Brendan Murphy, it's the reality of the situation is it's obviously a financial decision as much as anything else. But I still think that if there was a competition structure, where Carlow actually finished their league and now they have a competition where they actually have a meaningful chance of winning and going playing in Croke Park and maybe getting a little bit more exposure and keeping riding the wave of momentum that they have, I think you're more inclined to keep these guys. Whereas when you don't, and when Carlow are going into a competition now that they have absolutely no chance in the world of winning, you're saying, well, why am I really staying around for that? I can come back and I can play league football Division 3 next year, and I can have we can have a good and a chance of maybe staying in the division or maybe go crazy and try and get up to Division 2. But that's their goal, and it's just like I said, that's the problem with the system we have.
Yeah, no, for sure. One last thing that we did want to talk to you about was the story that broke yesterday. Declan Bogue had it that it looks like there's only going to be one Ulster Football Championship match televised, that we're going to miss the Tyrone Monaghan game. There's going to be a TV blackout for that. Then today, John Fogarty has a story that looks like there's going to be one Munster Football Championship game, the final, which is going to be live on TV. What do you make of this?
I don't like it. I mean, it's obviously, you can go back any couple of years. Last couple of years has always been the Ulster Championship has always provided us with the best entertainment for these kind of earlier round games. I mean, I know everything now is being pushed towards the Super 8s and those games are obviously going to be really competitive and everybody's going to want to show all of those games. But Jesus, somebody surely should have foreseen this coming down the tracks, that we could have some system in place to be able to watch these games in Ulster or to a lesser extent maybe the games in Munster. I mean, I still can't understand. And the same thing when you go back to league football. I can't understand how we don't have a facility, whatever way they can want to work it out. And there's plenty of intelligent people in Croke Park or headquarters that can work out these deals. How we don't have a facility where I can watch games in whatever county I want to watch them in, whether that's the county have to show them, put them on themselves or stream them somehow or deferred coverage or something. But how we can't, in this day and age, that I can't go and watch an Ulster Championship game, on my laptop or on TV or on deferred coverage or something, I just think it makes no sense. And surely we have the facility, even if it's one camera at the ground, that we had one shot of a game. Surely there's some mechanism there that can, if it's not going to be this year, obviously, that we could look at getting that done. It just makes no sense. Like the Ulster Championship has been the most entertaining and enjoyable championship for the last number of years to watch in these early months of the summer, and we're just not going to have that facility this year, which I just think is going to take hugely from this early stage of the year.
As well as that, maybe, I know the mindset was there, it mightn't still be there to the same extent, but there was a fear you know, amongst GAA people, for the want of a better phrase, that if you televise too many games, people won't go. Now, I know last year gate receipts were up, but that was probably due to Mayo and the run they went on and replays and stuff. But I wonder, is that part of it as well, that, you know, you don't want to show too many of them, because then why would people bother going?
Yeah, but I mean, like, possibly, but I don't think that's the logic behind it. I think it's all down to the specific rights of the number of games that they're showing. And I mean, it was always that the BBC Northern Ireland were showing the games using their cameras, and RTE were piggybacking off their coverage and stuff. And but yet they had to pay the GAA for rights, if I'm not mistaken. And like, I just can't understand though why. You know, if the game is on there, put it on an hour later, defer the coverage, and if you want to go watch the game live, go watch the game live, and if not, at least you have a facility later that evening to be able to go watch the game. I mean, some of the Ulster Championship games, lads, were brilliant, were a great watch, you know. And again, it's making it easier for people to go away. I mean, now you're playing in a competition maybe that you can't win. Now you've no chance of getting your team on TV. It's just I just think it's diminishing certainly the early rounds of the competition, and that's not something that we want to do, really.
Two things. It strikes me that they were accused of, this Super 8 is all about money. You're going to sell more games. There's a chance to get more games on Sky, and they were like, no, that's definitely not going to happen. When actually the right thing to be happen would have been say, well, we'll see, and then in year 2, if this year everybody wants to see Tyrone Monaghan, everybody goes, okay, we can show more games, and we are going to get more money, and we're going to spend that money on coaches and all the rest of the stuff. And like, it seemed like there was an overreaction to the criticism about the Super 8s being about money, fundamentally, when like ultimately it's about changing the structure of the season. And then the other thing is that it definitely will end up on GAA now. It's been interesting that they've been developing this over the last while with programming, with highlights, with all that kind of stuff, and they've retained their digital rights. So I think you're dead right. I think that there will be these games available for people to watch on their laptop, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was sooner rather than later, even this season as opposed to next season.
And I think that'd be great. I mean, like with the last thing, when you saw that, obviously they kept the rights, or they restricted the rights, so that they will. It seems like they're setting it up that in a year or two that they're going to be, you know, kind of broadcasting the games themselves, or have that facility to do it some way a little bit more in depth themselves. But I think it's definitely going that way, and at least I mean I'd be happy with it, certainly if there was some facility that you're able to catch more of these games. And you know, if it comes, it comes. I'm not sure. Are you saying it might be this year, Ger? You think?
I don't see why not. Those games will have cameras. There will be a broadcast of those games that you can plug in and plug. It's pretty easy.
Makes sense.
Not the worst thing. Would you be willing to pay any money for it?
Personally, I would. Yeah, I'd pay money for it if I had to. I know people will start giving out now that we shouldn't be paying for our national games, but I mean, if it's a facility whereby I can go and watch more games on my laptop or stream it on my TV, personally, I would be willing to pay for it. Yeah.
Would people differentiate though between paying the GAA, say, for a stream rather than buying a Sky Sports package for the summer? What's the difference?
Yeah, is there one really? I'm not sure. I mean, and you're probably getting more games than the other way, you know. But yeah, look, I'm sure there's going to be still plenty of free to air games. But if you want people who, you know, if you want to provide a facility for people who they have an option to watch all the games, or certainly more of the games in full, or in a, you know, some kind of an extended highlights package, and people are willing to pay for that, and you have the facility to do it, then at least why not offer it anyway, you know?
Make good stuff. Thanks a million.
No bother, guys.
Take care. Talk to you again soon. It's Mick Quirke giving us some interesting thoughts as usual.
Very much so. The whole thing about that televising the paying, that will be controversial. I've
realised that actually the thing to do is not to give it to people this year, is to create that sense of desire. Oh, if only we had this, if only I could watch Tyrone and Monaghan on my phone. Oh, I could watch it next season for $5. Everybody's like, yeah, I'll pay $5. You pay at the gate.
You do, but you're there then.
Isn't television just like being there?
Well, that's the thing, but I suppose it's never that simple with the GAA though, is there? It's always those layers because it belongs to all of us. We're all volunteers. It's an amateur game. I think if you're paying the GAA as opposed to paying a third-party provider, perhaps, I think that's a spiritual difference. Perhaps. We'll have to wait and see what the commentariat have decided about this.
But I think they're probably all going to go, oh yeah, actually we're producing this ourselves, we're employing our own people.
But you could argue if you were from Monaghan, you would say, well, I've paid my licence fee to RTE, I've had my Sky Sports subscription, why do I have to go and pay the GAA a fiver to watch them play? You know.
That's a good point.
It's a valid point.
I guess because there's only a limited number of games that they're willing to sell to the TV companies and they're keeping the rest for themselves. Maybe they give it for free and the advertising is so great, or maybe Google comes and says, oh, we'll put it on YouTube for you and we're going to take loads of money from advertising, and a deal is done that way for it. But like, certainly there is a way to get every game broadcast on some platform, and we are hurtling towards that, I would suspect, sooner rather than later. And this year, when you start to see these games being blacked out, is a really quick staging post to it, as people start to get unmercifully annoyed about the fact that if Tipperary come through that side of the draw, they have to at some point win a big game, and if that's not televised live, people are going to be very annoyed about that.
Absolutely, and it's happened already. I remember 2 years ago Tipperary played Quirke and beat them, and it was a huge surprise, and it wasn't televised anywhere. I remember there was match footage but had to be brought all the way back to Dublin, and we only saw like highlights on the Sunday game that night.
Yeah,
it happened last year as well. They took Cavan, and eventually people will rightly say, why aren't we seeing more of Tipperary football? They're doing really well and they're playing a great brand of football.
Yeah, that's the thing, they're really enjoyable to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, Máire, that's great stuff. Thanks very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Tonight on Off the Ball, Wednesday Night Rugby, Kenny Cunningham's going to be in studio for the entire show. Those are always very special shows, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Tomorrow morning here on OTB AM, Alan Quinlan's going to be in studio. We'll have John Duggan on Punchestown and Gary Breen talking to us about the Champions League. And then tomorrow at 12:30, it's the Keith Andrews Show. It's our Burnley special. He sat down for a one-on-one exclusive with Sean Dyche, potentially and probably the manager of the year, certainly in with a better than 50-50 shot at being the LMA manager of the year. Unbelievable access to the training ground at Turf Moor, which is custom built and apparently one of the best in world football at the moment. So he talked to Johnny Walters, Joey Barton, Jeff Hendrick, Stephen Ward, Kevin Long, and an in-depth look at what they've achieved at the club. That's all tomorrow from 12:30 across all the Off the Ball platforms. We'll see you tomorrow. Good luck.
OTB AM. In association with Air. Get Air Sport free with Air Broadband.